The Assembly is now in session. Assembly Member Colonel Cook notices the absence of a quorum. The sergeants at arms will prepare the chamber and bring in the absent members. The clerk will call the roll.
Adams, Amiano, Anderson, Arambula, Bass, Bell, Bill Berryhill, Tom Berryhill, Blakesley, Block, Blumenfield, Bradford, Brownlee, Buchanan, Caballero, Calderon, Carter, Chesbro, Conway, Cook, Cotto, Davis, De La Torre, De Leon, DeVore, Emerson, Ing, Evans, Fior, Fletcher, Fong, Fuentes, Fuller, Furutani, Gaines, Galgiani, Garrick, Gilmore, Hagman, Hall, Harkey, Hayashi, Hernandez, Hill, Huber, Huffman, Jeffries, Jones, Knight, Liu, Logue, Lowenthal, Ma, Mendoza, Miller, Monning, Nava, Nastande, Nilo, Nilsson, Norby, V. Manuel Perez, Portantino, Ruskin, Salas, Saldana, Silva, Skinner, Smythe, Solorio, Strickland, Swanson, Torlickson, Torres, Tarico, Tran, The Lines, Yamada, Mr. Speaker.
Members, we ask our guests and visitors in the rear of the chamber and the gallery to please stand for the prayer. We ask our Assembly Chaplain, Father Constantine Papadimos, to offer the day's prayer.
Let us pray. Lord, during this holy season, we pause to thank you for your divine providence, your protection, your care, and your love for us. Fill us with your grace today, Lord, and help us to walk in love and to keep the peace when we might want to say something different, to show kindness even when it is undeserved. Thank you for establishing the system which blesses us as we bless others. Amen.
We ask our guests and visitors to now stand and join us for the flag salute. Join Assembly Member Tom Berryhill as he leads us in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. You may be seated. Reading of the previous day's journal.
Assembly Chamber, Sacramento, Thursday, March 25, 2010. The Assembly met at 7 a.m. Honorable Chuck DeVore, Assembly Member 7 District, Presiding Chief Clerk Dawson Wilson at the desk. Assistant Clerk Timothy Moreland reading. The roll was called. Adams, Amiano, Anderson, Arambula, Bell, Berryhill, Tom Berryhill, Blakesley, Block, Blumenfield, Bradford, Brownlee, Buchanan, Caballero, Calderon, Carter, Chesborough,
Mr. Calderon moves and Mr. Garrick seconds that the reading of the previous day's journal be dispensed with. Presentations of petitions, there are none. Introduction and reference of bills will be deferred. Reports of committees will be deemed read and amendments deemed adopted. Messages from the governor, there are none. Messages from the Senate, there are none. Motions and resolutions. The absences of the day will be deemed read and printed in the journal. I'd like to take this opportunity to welcome former Assemblywoman Sarah Reyes. She served in this House from 1998 to 2004. Welcome, Assemblywoman. Mr. Liu, you are recognized.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and members. I'd like to introduce guests on the Assembly floor from Los Angeles. They're visiting here today. We have Julie Lee, Brandon Lee, Donovan Lee, Tonya Maloof, Rafaela Maloof, Camila Maloof, Vittorio Maloof, and Brad Lee, who is co-president of the Korean American Democratic National Organization.
Mr. Calderon, you are recognized under motions and resolutions.
Madam Speaker, under motions and resolutions, I have a number of motions I would like to make at this time. Starting with...
Members, can we have some order on the floor, please?
Madam Speaker, I request unanimous consent to allow Assembly members Amiano, Anderson, Fletcher, Fong, Galgiano, Solorio, and Tarico to speak on adjourn in memory today.
Without objection.
Also, Madam Speaker, I request unanimous consent to re-refer AB 1639 by Nava from the Budget Committee to the Rules Committee.
Without objection.
Additionally, I request unanimous consent to re-refer AB 1702 by Mr. Swanson from the Judiciary Committee to the Rules Committee.
Without objection.
Also, I request unanimous consent to re-refer AB 1664 by Mr. Swanson and AB 1775 by Mr. Swanson from the Transportation Committee to the Rules Committee.
Without objection.
Also, request unanimous consent to re-refer AB 2635 by Mr. Portantino from the Education Committee to the Rules Committee.
Without objection.
Also request unanimous consent to re-refer AB 2699 by Speaker Emeritus Bass from the Judiciary Committee to the Rules Committee.
Without objection.
And I request unanimous consent to re-refer AB 2077 by Mr. Solorio from Health Committee to the Business and Professions Committee.
Without objection.
Further, I request unanimous consent to re-refer AB 296 by Mr. Miller from the Business and Professions Committee to the Judiciary Committee and then back to the Business and Professions Committee.
Without objection.
And also, a request, at the request of the authors, I'm giving a one-day notice of intent to remove the following bills from the inactive file. File item A24 SB 82 by Ms. Hancock. File item A16 SB 253 by Mr. Weiland. And file item A19 SB 550 by Mr. Flores.
Clerk will note. One-day notice.
All right. Also, I'm requesting, pursuant to Assembly Rule 77.2, I'm referring SB 401 to the Revenue and Taxation Committee and then to the Appropriations Committee.
Mr. Calderon, we are going to take that up in a little bit. And the amendments have to be adopted,
That's right. Okay. All right, then I request the unanimous consent to waive the file notice requirements to allow Revenue Tax. Oh, we got to amend that. All right, we need to wait for the amendments. All right, and I believe that concludes my motion. Oh, I do have. Well, I can return to motions, resolutions. We have anything else?
Mr. Calderon, you are recognized.
Yes, Madam Speaker, under motions and resolutions, I request unanimous consent for Assemblymember Fuller to have guests and photographers on the floor.
Without objection.
Also, I referred to a Swanson bill as 1775, but it's AB 1725 for referral.
Clerk will note.
And then finally, request unanimous consent to waive the file notice for G14 by Ms. Pavley. so it can be here in appropriations on Wednesday.
We'll have to come back to that motion. Ms. Fuller, would you like to recognize your guest today?
I'd like to proudly, I'm very honored to have two guests with me today. Congressman Kevin McCarthy, I'm really pleased to have him with me again today. And many of you remember when he gave his service to his time here. And a very dear constituent friend and local businesswoman is Shannon Grove. Thank you. Thank you all.
Okay, members, we are ready to take up amendments on item 34, SB 401. Mr. Emanuel Perez. Clerk will read.
Senate Bill 401 with amendments by Assemblymember V. Emanuel Perez.
On the amendments, Mr. Perez.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker and members, I rise for purpose of amending SB 401. Specifically, the amendments delete the existing contents of the measure and instead include language to conform several state tax laws to several federal tax changes made since 2005. Please note the amendments do not contain the erroneous claim for refund penalty that the governor objected to. For clarification, the amendments basically reflect AB 1580 and SB 32X8 minus the erroneous penalty provisions. I ask that the bill be sent out to print and be put back on file. I ask for your support.
Mr. Calderon, for what purpose do you rise?
Yes, I'd like to request that this matter just be put over temporarily so I can talk to the author on this measure. There's an objection by Republicans on the amendments, and so I want to take a look at that.
Okay, this item will be passed temporarily.
Yeah.
Okay, members, we are going to start taking up third reading. Ms. Yamada, item number 17, AB 1681. Clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 1681 by Assemblymember Yamada, an act relating to elections.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Speaker and members. I am presenting AB 1681, which would allow on a pilot basis one of my counties, Yolo County, to conduct up to three all-male MAIL ballot elections. These would be local elections. I just wanted to assure all of my women colleagues that I'm not promoting only men to vote. This bill is similar to a bill that was presented here and passed and got to the governor's office last year, was vetoed, but we are working with the governor's office to try to work out. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Members, can we have some attention to our authors?
That's all right. I understand this is the first real bill since we just got back. So, again, AB 1681 is a district bill, would allow Yolo County, at the discretion of the elected Yolo County elections official, to declare an all-male local ballot. We believe that this bill will provide useful data to look at the future of all-male balloting in California. Previous attempts did not include a study element, which is an important and distinguishing feature of this bill. This study would allow the elections officials to report to the legislature the performance and the demographic information contained in the participation in all-male balloting. We are pleased this year to have the support not only of the sponsor, Yolo County Elections, the Yolo County Board of Supervisors, but also the League of California Cities, the Rural Counties Association, as well as Disability Rights California, and I might add one supporter that I'm particularly proud of, the Orange County Taxpayers Association. I respectfully ask for your aye vote.
Any questions or debate, members? Seeing no questions or debate, clerk will open the roll. All members desiring to vote, please vote. 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 Clerk will close the roll, tally the vote. Ayes 44, noes 19. Measure passes. Ms. Saldana, on item 18, AB 1832, clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 1832 by Assemblymember Saldana, an act relating to initiatives.
Ms. Saldana.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Members, this is a good government bill. It will simply ensure that when people file a ballot measure, that the state is having the resources necessary to do a thorough evaluation of that ballot measure. The original fee for these were established 67 years ago. They have not been changed in the time ever since, and yet the number of ballot measures filed every year has increased decade by decade. I ask for your support for this. A similar bill was vetoed last year. We've taken the governor's veto message into account. I ask for your support today.
Members, any questions or debate? Seeing none, clerk will open the roll. All members desiring to vote, please vote. All members who desire to vote, please vote. All members who desire to vote, please vote. Clerk will close the roll, tally the votes. Ayes 43, noes 22. Measure passes. Mr. Amiano, item 20, AB 1691. Clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 1691 by Assemblymember Amiano, an act relating to public post-secondary education.
Mr. Amiano.
Thank you, Madam Chair and colleagues. AB 1691 requires the CSU Board of Trustees and requests that the UC Board of Regents to allow ex officio members of these governing boards to delegate a representative from the same elected body to attend meetings in their absence. The bill was amended in the Assembly Higher Education Committee to clarify that representatives of ex officio members would not be able to attend a closed session. The bill is similar to a measure I introduced last year, AB 690, which passed through the Assembly and Senate. Designees would not be granted the authority to vote, nor would they count toward the establishment of a quorum. The designees would only serve as the eyes and ears of the ex officio members and provide insight to the legislative and executive branches' views on higher education issues to these two governing bodies. The measure is sponsored by AFSCME and supported by the California Faculty Association and the California State Employees Association. I thank you for your consideration and urge an aye vote.
Seeing no questions or debate, clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. Please vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Please vote. Clerk will close the roll, tally the vote. Ayes 41, noes 21. Measure passes.
All right, members, we'll move to file item 21, AB 1656. Ma, clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 1656 by Assemblymember Ma and others, an act relating to fur products.
Thank you,
Ms.
members.
Ma.
AB 1656 will require all garments sold in California that are made of animal fur to say so on the label. This legislation comes after investigations in the Los Angeles, San Francisco, and Sacramento areas found unlabeled fur jackets for sale at well-known stores, in several instances being described by the salespeople as fake fur. Under federal law, if the fur value is under $50, under $150, it doesn't have to be labeled. The Federal Trade Commission estimates that 1 in 8 fur trim garments go unlabeled. California consumers, especially those with allergies and ethical objections to animal fur, have the right to know that they are buying what they are buying and what they are wearing. New York, New Jersey, Delaware, Massachusetts, and Wisconsin has passed similar legislation. I respectfully ask for your aye vote, members.
Mr. Adams.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Members, I rise in strong support of this measure. At a bare minimum, and irrespective of whether you believe that fur is moral or immoral, what this does do is it provides consumers a clear choice. They can make an informed decision, and that gives consumers a better opportunity to know what it is that they're doing and to consider the consequences of the decisions they make while they're shopping. Members, I think this is a well thought out, meaningful piece of legislation, and I would urge your aye vote.
Mr. Liu.
Thank you, Mr. Hall. Members, I'm pleased to be a joint author of this bill, and I rise in strong support of it. This is a consumer disclosure bill. It lets consumers know that what they are buying is actually real fur or fake fur, and this is one of the bills that other states have passed and completed, and so I'm proud to join in that effort. Respectfully request an aye vote.
Thank you. Mr. DeVore.
Request permission to ask a question of the author.
Without objection.
Under current legal rights, if a customer goes into a store and asks the question, is this faux fur, is this real fur, and they make a purchase based on what is said at that store, and it ends up that it's real fur and they have an allergic reaction, is not that customer allowed under current law to file a civil suit for damages?
I am not sure, but currently there is a federal loophole or exemption that any fur under $150 does not have to be labeled. That is the current law.
Right. On my own time, ladies and gentlemen of the Assembly, I believe that based on current civil code and that you can, in fact, bring a lawsuit if something is said to be one thing and it's really something else, and you suffered harm, whether harm due to an allergic reaction or harm because you don't believe in that there should be natural fur products. The concern that I have with this measure, however well intended, is that this measure is yet one more of many such measures that we seem to routinely pass in this body, in the state of California, which have resulted in our state having the most burdensome regulatory environment in the nation. And this has led to the mass out-migration of the productive taxpayers of the state of California going to other places where it's easier to make money, easier to make earn a living. And it just seems to me that in this current environment where our unemployment rate is the 5th highest in the world, and we would rather have people move to California and open up businesses, this is just one more example of us telling people who would invest in California that no, we'd really rather that you not come here. I believe, based on existing law, that it is perfectly legal that if someone says, hey, is there fur in what I'm about to buy? And if you're told no, you have a case for a lawsuit. And all this is going to do is ramp up fines on retailers, some of whom may not even know themselves what they've purchased. So for that, I would recommend a no vote on this bill.
Ms. Yamada.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members. I rise in support of AB 1656. It seems like a very simple and straightforward, almost federal conformity or closing a loophole that exists in the law. Why would we invite further litigation when something more proactive and preventive would protect the public as well as the retail community from this kind of a lawsuit? I just think this is a much simpler and more straightforward solution, and I urge an aye vote.
Mr. Nava.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members. I rise in support of the bill and also as a co-author. And I think it's important to realize that all that we're doing here, and it's very simple, is providing consumers with information. And I don't know why it is that any of us would have reservations about letting consumers know about the products that they're buying. We know that in polling that there are at least more than a third of Americans who have objections to buying or wearing animal fur. So for those people ought to be able to have the information that as they look at a product and if they see fur on it, that they can make a decision whether or not it's animal fur or if it's fake fur, whatever that is. So all we want to do with this bill is to make sure that consumers who have strongly felt opinions about animal fur can make an intelligent choice about not purchasing articles of clothing that have real fur. And keep in mind, sometimes this fur is dyed an unnatural color. Can't really tell exactly where it is and where it comes from. And all that we're doing in California is having the same experience that New York, New Jersey, Delaware, Massachusetts, and Wisconsin have experienced. Hasn't been a problem in those states, shouldn't be a problem in California. You just have to add a few words to the label. Ask for an aye vote.
All debate having ceased. Ms. Ma, would you like to close?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This bill, as some of my colleagues have mentioned, would avoid any potential lawsuits by clearly labeling whether a product is fake or real. Other states, New York, New Jersey, Delaware, Massachusetts, and Wisconsin already do that. So retailers and manufacturers are already providing that information, and we would like to see that information provided to Californians. Thank you. Thank you.
All debate having ceased, clerk will open the roll. All those voters are to vote. All those voters are to vote. Clerk will close the roll. Tally the votes. Ayes 46, no 7. Measure is adopted. We'll file item 23 AB 1701. Mr. Chesbro, clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 1701 by Assemblymember Chesbro, an act relating to public health.
Mr. Chesbro.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members, AB 1701 will make the Disease Prevention Demonstration Project permanent. The Disease Prevention Demonstration Project of 2004 was created by a bill that was authored by Senator John Vasconcellos. It allows cities and counties who are authorized locally by the Board of Supervisors or the City Council to sell 10 or fewer hypodermic needles without a prescription. The purpose of the project is to reduce the spread of disease by intravenous drug use. Since 2004, the program has been a great success. Currently in California, we have 15 counties and 4 cities and 650 pharmacies participating in the program. According to the California Department of Public Health, the program has rolled out smoothly and participating counties have been positive. According to the California Department of Public Health Office of AIDS, no adverse effects have been reported by the pharmacies participating in the program. This measure is supported by health officers of California, the AIDS Project of Los Angeles, the Drug Policy Alliance, and others. I would ask for your aye vote.
Seeing no question or debate, clerk will open the roll. All those voters desire to vote. 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 Clerk will close the roll. Tally the votes. Ayes 43, noes 20. Measure is adopted. Move to file item 26, AB 1999, by Mr. Portantino. Clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 1999 by Assemblymember Portantino and others, an act relating to alcohol.
Mr. Portantino.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members, and thank you for the opportunity to present AB 1999. This is a bill of which I'm very passionate about. In my district recently, a young gentleman, an actual intern of mine, had an unfortunate situation where he was at a party and it didn't go well. He ended up leaving us. And I wonder if this bill had been in place in California as it had been in New Jersey, Colorado, and Texas, whether that young gentleman would still be here. Basically, this bill says if you're out and you're underage and you're with somebody who needs help from an emergency personnel and you do the right thing and you call 911, we're going to give a very limited immunity to those young people who do the right thing. The bill, I'm pleased to say, has enjoyed broad bipartisan support in committee, and I thank members from both sides of the aisle for seeing that this is a very limited immunity that will save lives. The states that have done it have seen a significant increase in the number of underage students who have made that call to 911 and have saved lives. College campuses that have instituted this policy have not only seen an over 60% increase in the willingness of students to make 911 phone calls, but they've also seen a significant increase in the number of students who have sought help for problem drinking. This bill is narrowly focused. It will save lives, and I thank you and respectfully ask for an aye vote.
Thank you. Mr. DeVore.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm proud to be part of that broad bipartisan support that was mentioned by the author, be a co-author of this measure. This measure will save lives, and it does so not by expanding government, by applying common sense to existing law. I think it is long overdue, and I applaud the author for bringing it forward. I urge an aye vote.
Thank you, Mr. Portantino. Would you like to close?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. 3 weeks ago, I had a conversation with the mother of the young gentleman in my district, and she said, "We don't know what killed my son, but we know that if in the last hour of his life he had reached emergency medical personnel, he might be with us." She offered to do everything in her power to see that this bill gets through, and I thank my co-authors, and I thank the truly bipartisan support, and respectfully ask for an aye vote.
Seeing and hearing no other debate or discussion, clerk will open the roll. All those vote desire to vote. 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 Clerk will close the roll. Tally the votes. Ayes 61, noes no 1. Measure is adopted. We move to file item 8, ACA 10. Mr. Torlakson, clerk will read.
Assembly Constitutional Amendment 10 with amendments by Assemblymember Torlakson.
Mr. Torlakson, on the amendments. On the amendments, you may begin.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members, I would like to offer these amendments and urge adoption. They're a simplification of some school district financing measures. Urge an aye vote.
Seeing and hearing no debate or discussion, clerk will have a voice vote on the amendments. All those in favor of a voice vote on the amendments will vote by voice. All those in favor of the amendments say aye. What a vacation. Any opposed? No. Ayes have it. Amendments are adopted, out to print, and back on file. All right, we'll move to file item 29, ACR 134 by Mr. Adams. Clerk will read.
Assembly concurrent resolution 134 by Assemblymember Adams relative to Child Abuse Prevention Month.
Mr. Adams.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Members, I rise to ask for your support of ACA 134, the Child Abuse Prevention Month of April. Over 5.8 million children get reported to Child Protective Services in the United States every year. Cases where children have never been given an opportunity to flourish, to grow, and to develop in order to become healthy and productive members of our society. Members, child abuse doesn't just occur in other people's homes, it occurs in homes next door to you, to homes where people attend church, to homes where people that don't attend church, to families of every shape and size. Child abuse is a problem that extends far beyond even our shores. Members, this is a problem that needs our attention, a problem that deserves our leadership. And I ask you to join me and co-authoring and supporting me in ACR 134, designating April as Child Abuse Prevention Month. Madam Speaker, I would ask that the first roll be open to co-authors.
First roll open to co-authors. Members who would like to co-author, please vote. Clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. Please vote. All members vote who desire to vote. This is to be co-authors. Members, clerk will close the roll, tally the votes. Close the roll. Aye 60. Oh, 60 co-authors, members. Okay, members, we're going to take a voice vote on this measure. All members who desire to vote, please signify by aye. All those who oppose, no. The ayes have it. The resolution is adopted. Ms. Skinner, file item 30 HR 27. Clerk will read.
House Resolution 27 by Assemblymember John A. Perez relative to Committee on Business and Professions.
Madam Speaker, members, HR 27, authored by Speaker Perez, changes the title of the Committee of Business and Professions to the Committee on Business, Professions, and Consumer Protection. I respectfully request your aye vote on the resolution.
Any questions or debate? Seeing none, clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote, please vote. All members vote who desire to vote, please vote. Clerk will close the roll. Ayes 59, noes 0. Ayes 60, noes 0. Tally the vote. Resolution is adopted. Okay, members, we are going to go to requests for adjourn in memories. The following members were previously granted permission to speak on adjourn in memories today. Mr. Amiano, you are recognized. Mr. Amiano, would you like to do your adjourn in memory?
Could I pass for a moment, please, Madam Chair?
Yes, pass temporarily. How about Mr. Anderson? Mr. Anderson, adjourn in memory?
Madam Speaker, members, today it's with great sadness that I rise in memory of a beloved member of San Diego County community, Pastor Don Hamer. When I attended his service, it was no surprise that we had well over 1,000 people there because he touched so many people's lives. His passing was a shock to all of us, and it's with heavy hearts that we lost this dedicated educator, pastor, and a selfless man. Don was a type of fellow that if something needed to be done in your community, he'd get it done. He was always reaching out to other people. He was always asking if things were moving along in the community. In my district, we had several shootings at the local high school. In fact, we had more than one high school with a shooting. Don was one of the first guys there each and every time to coach and mentor and help those kids and work them through those issues. And we were really fortunate to have him in our community on so many levels. And so I'm really sorry to say goodbye to my good friend. With that, I ask that we adjourn in his name.
Okay. Mr. Fong, you're recognized.
Madam Speaker and members, please join me in adjourning in the memory of Keiko Suda Lowry. Keiko was born in Yonago, Japan. In 1972, she graduated from Dushisha University with a degree in English literature. Keiko graduated with a degree in library science from San Jose State University in 1986. Throughout her many professions, Keiko most enjoyed her job with the Santa Clara Unified School District. She worked as a teacher's aide for autistic children. Keiko will be remembered for her love, warmth, and unique character. She leaves behind her loving husband, Brian, her son, Stephen, and countless individuals whose lives she's touched. Please join me in extending our sympathies and prayers to Keiko's family. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Fong. Ms. Galgiani, you're recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I rise in support, or I rise to recognize the passing of longtime veterans advocate Leo Burke, who passed away recently at the age of 84. He's past chairman of the California Veterans Board, and he's one of the few appointees that was recognized and appointed by both Republican and Democratic governors, Deukmejian, Wilson, and Davis, over time. He also served for many years on the San Joaquin Delta Community College Board of Trustees. He was a U.S. Marine Corps and a veteran of World War II. Please join me in adjourning in the memory of Leo Burke. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Galgiani. Mr. Solorio.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and members. I rise to adjourn in memory of Lance Corporal Rick Centani of the Marine Corps Reserve's 4th Light Armored Reconnaissance Battalion. Rick, only 19 years old, was killed when his armored vehicle struck a roadside bomb in southern Afghanistan. Rick was the only son of Santa Ana Police Department Gang Unit Sergeant John Centani. He was born and raised in Yorba Linda and attended Esperanza High School. Just weeks after graduation, Rick enlisted in the Marines. Friends and family say Rick was smart, outgoing, funny, and determined to serve his country. His future plans included becoming a Santa Ana police officer, just like his father. As a man of integrity, honor, and courage, Rick would have made an outstanding police officer. Rick's father says Rick was a blessing to him, a great man who made him proud. He would like Rick to be remembered as a proud Marine who died serving his country. Rick Centani sacrificed his life for our country's future. We will remain eternally grateful. Thank you.
Mr. Knight.
Yes, I would also like to adjourn in memory for Sergeant Major Cottle. He was in the same vehicle that killed Rick Centani. Sergeant Major Cottle and I joined the LAPD at the same time, 990 class. He was my squad leader. He was one of those guys that would go through the door first without any questions asked, and he was one of those people that everybody believed was going to be a success. That's why he became a sergeant major in the Marine Corps. That's why he was assigned to the Special Weapons and Tactics Unit, D team on LAPD, SWAT for everybody else. And he was one of those special guys. Just shows you that life is short. You never know. But I would also like to adjourn in memory for Sergeant Major Robert Cottle.
Thank you, Mr. Tirico.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I rise this afternoon to adjourn in the memory of Jaime A. Escalante, who was born in La Paz, Bolivia in 1930. Following in the path of his parents, who were both teachers, Jaime began teaching in Bolivia, where over the course of 12 years he developed a widespread reputation for excellence in teaching math and physics. In 1974, Mr. Escalante was hired as a basic math teacher at Garfield High School in East Los Angeles. His spectacular success teaching advanced mathematics to students who had been considered unteachable attracted national attention. When his story was told in the acclaimed film Stand and Deliver, Escalante became a national hero. From 1974 until 1991, Mr. Escalante taught in the LA Unified School District. From 1991 through 1998, he taught algebra and calculus for the Sacramento Unified School District. To reach more students, he became the host of one of the most popular classroom programs in the history of PBS, Futures, and was honored with more than 50 awards from educational and professional organizations, including the highest honor in the broadcasting field, the George Foster Peabody Award. Mr. Escalante's many teaching awards include the Presidential Medal for Excellence in Education, the Andres Bello Prize from the Organization of American States, and the Free Spirit Award from the Freedom Forum. In the spring of 98, Mr. Escalante announced his retirement from teaching. He passed away on Tuesday, March 30th, 2010. One of the greatest honors I have had while serving in this legislature was meeting him here about 3 years ago when he received the Spirit Award from the Latino Caucus. To meet him, to speak with him, and to see the great humility and the grace, and to see his determination and commitment to our young people, particularly Latinos, who too many have written off, and his dedication to making sure that these students dreamed of not only a better future, but of a better future that included college. I ask that this body adjourn in his memory today.
Thank you, Mr. Tirico. Members, please bring the names forward to the desk. The remaining requests to adjourn in memory will be deemed read and printed in the journal. I'd also like to take this opportunity to welcome Ms. Donna McKay, sister of Ms. Harkey, who is sitting next to her on the floor. Oh, I am sorry. Mr. Amiano. We passed temporarily. Mr. Amiano.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I would like to ask for an adjourn in memory for Mr. Jim Marshall. He was a legendary rock photographer. He died Wednesday, March 24th at the age of 74. Mr. Marshall's unparalleled access, technical talent, and musical passion merged to create hundreds of album and magazine covers, turning him into a household name among the biggest names in rock and roll. His big break came in the 1950s after he returned home from the Air Force and bumped into John Coltrane, who needed a ride. The jazz legend later showed his gratitude by allowing Mr. Marshall to photograph him. When the Beatles played their final concert at San Francisco Candlestick Park in 1966, Mr. Marshall was the only cameraman invited backstage. He photographed Bob Dylan, Ray Charles, Rolling Stones, The Grateful Dead, Janis Joplin. Well, I'm having a flashback, excuse me. Ray Charles, Thelonious Monk, and continued to take pictures until his final days, most recently photographing John Mayer, Ben Harper, Lenny Kravitz, and Limp Bizkit. San Francisco's photographer, Pat Johnson, affectionately referred to Marshall as the god of rock photography. I would appreciate an adjournment in his memory. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Armiano. Members, we are prepared to do second reading. Item number 1, clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 1596, 1883 with amendments, 2020 with amendments, 1933 with amendments, Assembly Joint Resolution 37 with amendments, and Assembly Bill 1680 with amendments.
All amendments are deemed read and adopted. Okay, members, second day consent, file item 39 to 45. Any members wish to remove an item from the second day consent calendar? Seeing and hearing none, the clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 1660 by Assemblymember Salas, an act relating to airports.
The clerk will open the roll on the consent calendar. All members who desire to vote, please vote. 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 How about me? Am I on? Am I on or off?
I've got to change my vote from...
Okay. The clerk will close the roll and tally the vote. Ayes 70, noes no. The consent calendar is adopted.
Assembly Bill 1730.
Ayes 70, noes none.
Assembly Bill 1986.
Ayes 70, no none.
Assembly Bill 2119.
Ayes 70s, no, noes 0.
Assembly Bill 2243.
Ayes 70s, no 0.
Assembly Bill 2271.
Ayes 70s, no 0.
And Assembly Concurrent Resolution 105.
Ayes 70, no 0. Members, we've got one more item on file we are trying to resolve. However, the session schedule is as follows. Tuesday, April 6, check-in. Wednesday, April 7, check-in. Thursday, April 8, floor session at 9:30 a.m. Mr. Calderon, you are recognized.
Yes, Madam Speaker, I would like to return to amendments. Under motions and resolutions, SB 401.
Mr. Perez is prepared to take up that bill for amendments.
Right, but Madam Speaker.
Clerk will read.
Madam Speaker, the amendments are property of the House, and so I will take up those amendments myself.
Okay, Mr. Calderon, clerk will read.
Senate Bill 401 with amendments by Assemblymember Calderon.
Yes, Madam Speaker, these amendments amend a bill that this House voted to the governor and the governor vetoed because there was one provision in those amendments, and that provision related to a penalty for overstatement of refunds. These amendments take that out, and otherwise the bill is the same as what's presented.
Mr. Gaines?
That's for an
Thank you, Madam Speaker and members. I just wanted to take this opportunity to invite you to our fellowship meetings that we have in the Rules Committee on Wednesday morning.
Mr. Gaines, I'm sorry, we are on amendments right now, but I will recognize you right after this.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Hagman.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And at this time, we do like a roll call vote. We do request a no vote on these amendments.
What is it? Thank you, Mr. Hagman. Okay, seeing no more questions or debate, Mr. Calderon calls for an aye vote. Mr. Hagman calls for a no vote. Majority vote. Majority of those present and voting. Clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Okay. Clerk will close the roll. Tally the votes. Aye 42, noes 26. Amendments are adopted.
Madam Speaker, I request that unanimous consent to waive the file notice requirements to allow Revenue-Tax to hear 401 Tuesday.
Mr. Calderon, pursuant to Assembly Rule 77.2, I am re-referring SB 401 to the Revenue and Taxation and to the Appropriations Committee.
All right. And
on the file notice, Mr. Calderon.
Thank you. And I'm requesting to waive unanimous consent to waive file notice so that those two committees can hear this bill on Tuesday, April 6 at 1:30 p.m. in room 126.
Without objection. Mr. Gaines, for what purpose do you rise?
Yes, just thank you, Madam Chair and members. Just like to make an announcement, if I could briefly. We do have fellowship meetings on Wednesday mornings in the Rules Committee from 8 to 9. Politics is a tough business. It's nice to have an opportunity to talk to one another and pray for one another. And so just want to extend an invitation to anybody, any member who's interested in attending. We'd love to have you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Members, seeing no further business in the House, I'm ready to entertain a motion to adjourn. Hold on. I'm seeing some more business in the House. Mr. Calderon.
Yes, under most and resolutions, I previously waived the file notice so that 401 could be heard in rev and tax on Tuesday, and I stated appropriations on Tuesday. My motion, I want to amend that motion and waive the file notice so this 401 can be heard on Wednesday in Appropriations Committee on April 7.
Without objection.
And then also, I'd like to waive the file notice so that SB 77 by Ms. Pavley can be heard in Appropriations on April 7th.
Without objection.
All right.
Okay, thank you, members. Okay, I am ready to entertain a motion to adjourn. Mr. Calderon moves. Mr. Hagman seconds that this House stands adjourned until Thursday, April 8th at 9:30 a.m. Quorum call is lifted.
Now I can do it? This is for you, Fiona. Assembly District 67, Bill AB 1656, from no to yes.
Silva, Assembly Bill 1656, no to yes.